Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, we've been talking about Medicaid traps. Trap number one is this perception that if somebody's in a nursing home, there's nothing you can do.
Right, and so what we have to usually dispel is the belief that that's the case, and show folks that that's when you start doing things. When you have a problem, then you address it.
More than 95% of the asset transfer strategies we engage in, we do not engage in until after the person is in the nursing home. And yet the number one urban myth out there is you can't make transfers after someone's in the nursing home.
Exactly, and the reality is you're probably better off waiting to engage in aggressive things until after you're admitted, because if you're impoverished, it's really difficult to find and get admitted to a quality facility.
And oftentimes the problem is that some transfer rules that used to work in the past do not work today. Right. And if you engaged in those strategies that did work in the past, these problems don't get better. In the old days, you made a transfer, the clock started running from the date of the transfer. Now it can be 5 years that it's held in abeyance before the clock starts running. And so for most people make a transfer 3 years before a person went in a nursing home, it was no better than waiting until after the person was in the nursing home. It didn't help.
Right, exactly. It's like a little dark cloud that follows you around. And so, I'd rather have the cloud started when we want to have it started rather than this unknown problem.
And the key does not mean you don't get prepared. It just simply means powers of attorney, understanding what your options are, what you need to do, not necessarily engaging in anything. Because I oftentimes point out to people, statistically, there's a 1 in 4 chance you'll spend about 3 years in a nursing home, but also means a 3 in 4 chance you're not.
Right.
And many of these preemptive strikes are actually a negative in the event that you don't go to a nursing home. You have to balance these.
That's a good point. There's too many other risks out there. So, you've got a 25% chance potentially of needing long-term care, but there's all these other issues and all the problems that go on in families that you don't want to, roll the dice and incur those problems.
We have family members that have economic setbacks, and because the child's name is on the house, now that house is available to their child's creditors. We've had children die, and so now their spouse owns the house or a minor child owns the house. These are just risks that make absolutely no sense and were not necessary in many instances.
Exactly. You're just incurring other problems that you didn't need to. And those big Ds, death, divorce, disability, are more common than ever.
And so as we look at this stuff here, we want the parent to be secure. And transfers by a married couple to a child almost never make any sense because people don't realize the law is designed to protect healthy couples. You can typically, for a middle-class family, protect everything they have, but that transfer created a period of ineligibility when there wouldn't have been one had you not made the transfer.
And that's an excellent point. Most of the time with married couples, we're fixing gifts rather than engaging in gifts because it's not a necessary tool.
And yet people say, well, you can't do anything after the person's in the nursing home, but in Medicaid, both Maryland, Pennsylvania, and all the adjoining states, there's absolutely no negative impact to making a transfer between spouses. You can wait and it doesn't impact your eligibility.
Yeah, and oftentimes we're sitting with folks and we'll ask them, which one of you is going in a nursing home? And they'll point at each other because no one thinks they're going to go in a nursing home. So if that's the case, wait till you really do, and then we can take steps to protect you.
And the key to that, though, is having that power of attorney with the authority to make gifts. Both traps for both Pennsylvania and Maryland. The Pennsylvania power of attorney has a whole bunch of traps on gifting clauses. What would seem to be right is actually wrong.
Yeah, and so you'll often see, especially online, the dumbed down version with very limited powers. Well, it doesn't help us in a full-blown nursing home setting where we have to do very aggressive things.
Including transferring all of the assets to the healthy spouse in many instances. And that power of attorney in Pennsylvania has a limitation on your ability to do it. It seems right, but it's wrong.
Yeah, and so if you use the wrong language or don't have good, up-to-date power of attorneys, you're really creating other problems that'll hurt you.
And the Maryland statutory form has no provisions for gifting, so that's even worse.
Yeah.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Douglas A. Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Matt Hurley from Hurley Auctions. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
You know, we talk about this all the time, and I oftentimes when we do our seminars, I actually look out at the crowd and say, this means you. Somehow people think that the rules don't apply to them.
We deal with it all the time.
And so we talk about things that people need to address. You know, first of all, we have people say, well, probate can take years. Well, the fact is the only time probate takes years as a rule is because the kids don't get off their duff and deal with that house. And it wouldn't have mattered whether it was in probate or it was in a trust, or even if it had already been transferred to the kids' names, it's still sitting there, and people are just overwhelmed with the thought of trying to break down a house that, you know, the parents spent 70 years collecting stuff for.
Yeah, where to start, what to do, what to keep, what to throw. We can really help them with that.
And really, we're in a complete period of transition right now. I can remember when I was a young man, the stuff that was important to my parents was important to me. And so you had a lot of the historic antiques, you know, silver, the sterling, you know, big furniture and so forth. But we've had quite a change in the buying public.
Yeah, more than ever before, people just don't want grandma's things or mom and dad's things. They consider it clutter. My wife, if I take her some nice antique, she'll say, what is that? That's just one more thing I have to worry about. They like to simplify, and they just don't like it.
Well, we see an awful lot of the younger generation is not particularly interested in large houses, and a lot of the stuff that really is cool is
just
big stuff doesn't fit.
That's right. That's right. They want to buy something new that's small and fits and hangs on the wall.
Plus, they do things very differently. You know, in terms of when I was buying stuff 40 years ago, I wanted to go to the sale, I wanted to touch it, I wanted to look at it. And a lot of these current purchasers really don't care about touching it.
They don't. My wife never leaves the house to buy groceries anymore. She does it all online. She pulls up to Walmart, they set it in her car, and she pulls away. And that's how people are today. They want the convenience, they want the Amazon experience.
And so, you know, you have to realize that if you're a 60-year-old breaking down your 85-year-old parent's house, the world has changed, and it becomes very important that you deal with somebody who is familiar with those changes.
And you know, what we found is that the people that are 60 are not buying. Those people that are 20, 30, 40 are buying, but they're buying very different. So you're exactly right. how to handle it.
You know, and you look at Sterling, which we just love. Well, they look and say, "You telling me I got to clean and polish that stuff every time I use it?"
Give me the
Yes.
plastic.
No way, I'm not doing that. All right, so we always have a lot of fun. So what's rule number 1?
Don't throw anything away. Nothing.
And then rule number 2 is don't move anything.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about don't even clean it. Don't fix it. Don't try to repair it. Leave it just as it is. It's so important.
All right, so we'll have Director Greg pull up a couple pictures here. Now, these are beat up old bikes.
You know, this one's just for fun. This is a bicycle that we found in an attic that most people would throw away, and it even says in the description, flat tires. Don't fix them, because they're original tires from 1970. And so this bike sold at auction for $150. And so it's something that would have been tossed or given to the grandkids to run down the driveway, but it is a collector's item now.
All right.
So a lot has changed.
And so once again, you know, I mean, if the tires fill with air, that's fine. But if they don't fill with air, don't fix
They're
them.
still the original tires. Leave them on the bike. And so it's just been fun. And this is one we found in a house in Hagerstown. It was in the attic, and something that you just want to, don't paint it, don't clean it. Now this is the highlight of the day, Mike. In 25 years in business, this is one of the best antiques I've ever been able to handle. This is a Johann Spittler chest that was actually painted between 1801 and 1806. We narrowed it down to that period. But this is the original paint. What people don't realize is don't touch it, don't clean it. A chest just like this sold for $360,000 recently at auction. The highest piece for a Spittler wall cabinet was $900,000. The reason it was $900,000, it was hung in the closet and never saw sun. And it was like the day it was made. Now this one's rough, the leg's broken off, but still, don't repair it. We had the opportunity to repair it. We chose not to repair it, not to refinish it, not to clean it. There it is. It's the last one brought $360,000. We won't get it for this one, but it will do well. It's already at $5,200 and has 3 weeks to go.
And one of the interesting things about this is that this came out of a property that you would not have believed. Describe the property.
This one came out of a single-wide mobile home with a basement and a few additions. And we hauled out 9 26-foot box trucks of treasures. And so it's just unbelievable.
But you have to admit, even when you looked at it yourself, you thought maybe
when
this
I looked
was
at this
trash.
one, I almost turned it down. I thought, no, there's no value here. It has been awesome. We've had 4 or 5 auctions out of this house. We've sent things to probably 20 different states across the United States out of this house because they are just treasures that many people would just throw in the dumpster because it looked hard. It was a hoarder nightmare, but it has been a dream come true for an auctioneer.
So Matt, how can they get a hold of you?
They can check our website. It's hurleyauctions.com or give us a call at 717-597-9100.
As always, Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Good to be here.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Guys, I thought you were supposed to be working in the yard.
But Dad, just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com.
If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Dr. Matthew Wagner, psychiatrist, behavioral health systems, Meritus Health Systems. Welcome to the show, Dr. Wagner.
Thanks for having me.
We talked a little bit about last week about some of the symptomatic issues associated with dementia. Many times the caregiver can tell pretty rapidly something is wrong, But then that presents a lot of challenges in terms of managing that process over the balance of the person's life.
Absolutely. They kind of fall into two different categories. One is just adjusting to your change in role. You've been a spouse, you've been an adult child for your whole life with this person. Now you're becoming a caregiver. It's a whole different set of responsibilities and ways to relate to the person who's declining, and it can be a big adjustment.
And oftentimes, one of the biggest adjustments for the caregivers is to recognize that they have to deal with that person in a different manner. You know, oftentimes, even if the cognitive awareness is there as you speak to them, you know, the message is lost, and you've got to be prepared to deal with a situation that is not the same as you previously dealt with.
Exactly. Requires a lot more patience, some new sets of skills. For instance, folks with dementia who have very severe recent memory impairment will not remember what you've told them from moment to moment. So some families get very frustrated with the repetitive questioning. You know, when is the doctor's appointment? When is the doctor's appointment? When is the doctor's appointment? They've answered the question 5 or 10 times. And so we have to sort of help counsel families about different approaches to dealing with some of these kinds of things.
Now, there's some stuff that you can address from a symptomatic point of view, you know, and tell us a little bit about some of those challenges and what might be able to be dealt with.
I think what really gets to be difficult for families and caregivers is maybe not so much the memory loss, because families are pretty good at picking up the pieces there, but what we call the behavioral or psychological complications of dementia, which include personality change. A person who's ordinarily easygoing can become quite irritable or explosive. Insomnia, they don't sleep well at night. That can be a brain change associated with dementia. And I can tell you that if the patient's not sleeping, the family and caregiver are not sleeping, that's a recipe for disaster.
And oftentimes the caregivers, you know, has a work schedule or other things that they need to be able to address, and now they're not sleeping, which just adds complexity to the situation.
That's right. Difficult decision. When can a person with dementia be left alone so that you can go to work or you can go to the grocery store? Do they need a 24-hour person with them because they're confused and maybe they wander away from the home? So that's a difficult issue. When to stop driving? Huge problem. We spend a lot of time with families and patients talking about the safety issues and how to plan for that.
And oftentimes during the course of a day, they may, as they get tired or whatever the issue might be, the dementia may get worse. So you have somebody get in the car early in the morning knowing exactly where they're going, but don't remember why they're out.
It's a moving target from day to day and even from hour to hour. There's a very common experience called sundowning, which refers to the fact that people tend to do best. I tend to do best in the mornings. I'm not as good cognitively in the afternoon or evening, but I have a reserve to draw on. A person with dementia is operating in the red zone all the time. And so when it gets to be about 5 or 6 o'clock and the sun goes down, they often look much more confused. And this can be a real source of stress for caregivers.
And of course, in your role as a psychiatrist, sometimes you're going to try to help medicate or perhaps do some other adjustments to deal with this stuff. But in the final analysis, there's no prescription that's going to cure the dementia or the Alzheimer's.
Right. For these cases that we've talked about, the most common causes of dementia, we don't have a cure. For Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia, there are 4 medications that can be prescribed to help improve memory and cognitive functioning a little, or at least kind of hold the line for a while. And they may be modestly helpful. It's worth trying those, but they are certainly not a cure. Where we have somewhat more helpful impact is in dealing with some of these other issues like depression, insomnia, agitation, hallucinations. We have treatments that can help with those.
And that becomes critical because one of the things that people don't realize, it's not just the person suffering the affliction, but those caregivers are now under a great deal more pressure than they were in a more normal lifestyle arrangement.
In my office, when I have a visit with a person with dementia, I'm probably spending most of my time talking to the caregiver about how are they doing. And I say right up front, if the caregiver breaks down, now we have 2 people in this house who aren't functioning well. So you have to take care of yourself. Caregiver stress and burnout is a real issue. And there are ways for caregivers to, spouses and adult children and other caregivers, to provide good care and maintain their own psychological and emotional and physical health and equilibrium. But it requires planning and thought, and that's where we can help too.
And unfortunately for some of them change, which they don't like, but we'll talk about in-home caregiving, adult daycare, you know, all types of other arrangements that can help, but they have to realize that the ball has been moved.
Exactly. And many spouses, you know, feel like it's their job to be the only one to do it. So one of the things that we try to help people get to is that being a sole caregiver 24/7 is not a long-term strategy.
So how could somebody get a hold of it if they need some help?
Meritus Medical Center is where we have our office. In the link over there, just call the main number for Meritus Medical Center and ask for behavioral health, and we'll put it in touch with us.
Dr. Wagner, thanks for taking time to appear on our show.
It's been a pleasure.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
The Community Foundation strives to be a forward-thinking organization.
We are assessing needs, working with donors to see things differently,
so that Frederick County can be its best. It's a wonderful place for all of us to live, work, and play.
We look forward to addressing the future needs of the community.
Visit frederickcountygives.org and learn how you can start to see things differently too.
Albright, Crumbacher, Mal & Idtel are a full-service firm that provides elder care services including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. Making Sense focuses on the financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is David Twenhafel, Senior Vice President at the Family Heritage Trust Company. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you, Mike.
Dave, one of the unique features of the trust company is that there's no differentiation in compensation between one style of an investment that you have the client involved with versus another. There's no economic incentive for you to pick one or another.
That's true. We can have stocks, we have bonds, mutual funds. It doesn't matter. We charge on the basis of the value of the account.
All right. Are there any commissions on any of this?
No commissions, just fee only.
All right, and everybody says you should have fee only, but it's very difficult to find.
It is. Most people have commissions of one sort or another.
Now, one of the things that we work with clients about is we have a three-pronged test. I oftentimes characterize it as like a three-legged stool. A three-legged stool is inherently unstable, so if you have any leg that's out of whack, you have a seriously unstable, and we view the plan the same way. Security, avoiding risk, and comfortable, and they all three have to be in balance. So most people, when we talk about being secure, they, yeah, I got that, I want that. And we'll oftentimes use it as a justification for the failure to invest in the market, not realizing that the choices they make will have built-in losses.
That happens. We see that all the time.
So how would you have a built-in loss with a 1% CD?
Well, the most obvious is you're going to lose purchasing power. Inflation is 2 or 3%. You're getting 1%. You're losing 1 or 2% every single year.
And as I oftentimes say tongue-in-cheek to somebody, if I were to suggest that you invest $100,000, you would only lose $2,000 a year, would that be okay? And they look at me and say, you're out of your mind. Yet that's what they're doing by their failure to appropriately invest the money.
Yes, and that is a conversation for people it's kind of hard for people to understand inflation over time.
But all they have to do is just think about the cost of gasoline, the value of houses, the cost of cars, and so forth over the last 20 years. And so it doesn't go in a straight line. It doesn't manifest itself instantaneously, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you have had no increase in the value of that account, you have lost purchasing power.
It's the example I always think of is movies. When I was in high school, a movie cost $2. Now they cost $11 or $12, and they're really not much better movies.
And so as people have to bear that in mind, and many times when we're dealing with the retirement community, they have an aversion to spending more than they make, which then means they're growing an inheritance for their children and grandchildren. And so while they can say, well, I don't care about inflation, actually they do care.
They do, because money lasts for a long time. If you don't use it, someone else gets it. And most people want to leave their children, their grandchildren, more money than less money if they possibly can.
And so oftentimes people who are afraid of the market will then say, well, I'm going to go to bonds because I want to be guaranteed to get my money back. But bonds actually have a number of inherent risks associated with them too, and the risks are not as obvious, but just as real.
Well, there's two primary sorts of risks that bonds have. One is what's called interest rate risk, which is that as interest rates go up, the value of a bond you own will go down.
So as we have our viewers out there, they're looking at their statement and they're seeing their bond portfolio and it actually shows a loss. And they're saying, well, I haven't sold anything. But what's happened is the market value of that bond and this interest rate volatility that we have now with a trend upward means the value of those bonds is going down.
It's going down, and people do have this, so I can hold it till it matures, but sometimes you need the money for something, and you can't hold it till it matures.
Well, the other thing is if you had a bond that should have been paying 6%, but it's paying 3% because you bought it 5 years ago, you're losing 3% a year in real dollars that should have been paid to you because that bond is not yielding market rate yields anymore.
Yes, and it's the people just don't seem to understand that risk of that kind of that credit risk of the value of a bond.
Well, then credit risk is a completely different risk. And the best illustration of credit risk is Detroit. Detroit is not paying those bonds, And so, whereas the U.S. government, as I always say tongue-in-cheek, is always going to pay their bonds because they can print money, but anybody else does not have the option to print money.
That's true. And corporate sector, corporate bonds can go down, and a company can be downgraded in terms of its credit, which would make its bonds less valuable.
Well, not only that, but we've had instances in the last several years in which companies actually went under, and that means those bonds did not get paid.
That's right. I mean, the bondholders come before the stockholders, but if there's not enough money to pay the bondholders, they don't get their money back.
So we work with clients. We talk about wanting them to be secure. They need to protect themselves against inflation, but we also want to avoid unnecessary risk. And one of the companies that the trust company uses for investment advisory services is famous for a line that says a bond that has a maturity in excess of 5 years has more risks than the stock market. You're not getting paid for it, and yet people just find that almost unfathomable.
There's almost no good reason right now to own a bond that matures more than 5 or 6 years from now.
Dave, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just this simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.